Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm here with Neil Masters, and we're going to discuss how to design our restaurants. Neil is the director of Canton Masters, an interior design consultancy company based in London. Neil is, for me, is an innovative talent designer with a wealth of experience in the industry and has a strong client focus. So welcome, Neil. How are you this afternoon?
I'm good. Hi, Massimo. Nice to be here. Very exciting.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Neil, as a first thing, do you just want to tell us how did you build your company? When did you start with Canton Master?
Well, so we've been going since about 2012, and I've always, well, I say always, I've been in the sort of hospitality sector for most of my career, which is quite a long time, and working with some large blue chip companies, very established companies, and after a certain amount of time, I just felt like it was time to branch out on my own, and I was very fortunate that I was given encouragement by various people in the restaurant business, in the hospitality business, that were very positive about me doing that. And so then when I started out, we were working on chains such as Pho, who are still a fantastic client of ours, and we've been with them. They've been with us through all the recent difficult times and the good times as well. And we'll be working for a number of projects with them next year, which is exciting. And then GBK, we worked on a few projects for them, and then slowly built up the client base, really, just through hard work, as you know, hard work, dedication, and really going for it. So now we've worked for Coat, Vinoteca, who are a fantastic client of ours. We've got a couple of exciting projects for them on the go at the moment. We finished one a couple of years ago in the Bloomberg Arcade, and we've got a couple of new projects that should be happening spring first quarter next year. And we've been working on Carluccio's. We've done about 30 or 60 restaurants for Coat, and so quite a broad spectrum of restaurant projects. And we do high-end residential as well. So we've done quite a few residential projects. We've worked in south of France, a few projects in Spain, and we're just starting a project in Colombia, a large villa that we're just about starting work on now, actually, which is quite exciting. I've never worked in Colombia before. Don't speak a word of Spanish, but
You got to learn.
My lockdown project is on Duolingo, so I can order a meal. I can order a table in a restaurant, but I can't point at where something needs to go on a building site yet. But I'm sure that'll come.
Amazing. Neil, I had the chance to work with you on a few projects, and
yes,
there were also different level, different categories. And do you just want to tell us what are the challenges of whether we open an high-end restaurant or I don't want to say low-end, but a concept that is more fast casual? You've had chance of working on both. What are the similarity and the differences, perhaps, in terms of design and approach?
The similarity with a number. We work on a high-end project at the moment, and the similarities are that, especially in London, especially in the UK, there's if you imagine a restaurant, if anyone thinks of a restaurant in their local high street or somewhere near them in London or wherever they are, if it's in the UK, it may well have gone into a building that was once a bank or some sort of institutional building. If it's not a new build, the challenges are always getting, if it's an existing building, if it's an old building, maybe a Victorian building, is actually getting the restaurant into the building. I've worked on numerous conversions of banks into restaurants, and the real challenge is how does this building that was made to be a Victorian, not even maybe older than Victorian Georgian bank, how does it become a restaurant? Where's the plumbing? You know, it's going to need an accessible WC. Maybe it has steps. You know, is it going to be able to have a ramp to go into it? You know, how's the kitchen going to work? If it's a bank, there's usually strong rooms in it. Those needs to be blasted out, which is an enormous hassle and cost. You know, if it's a bank, it might have 3 or 4 flats above it, and you know there are ramifications if you alter the structure or the integrity of the building. What's going to happen of the ground floor and basement? Say what's going to happen to the first, second, third, fourth floors?
Yeah.
Access is another. Escape rather is another issue in that you know, often if you go into a building, whatever it may be, a bank or whatever, it doesn't have a rear escape, and if you don't have a rear escape, you really haven't got much of a restaurant. A secondary means of escape. So those are the initial challenges. It's just getting it to function. If you're working on a new build, then those challenges are they're not there. It should be designed for. It should be purpose built. But then, like Vinoteca in Bloomberg, there are also other challenges. You've got a landlord that wants that maybe even contributing to the cost, or has some say in what the stable of restaurants are going to look like. If you've got a Vietnamese restaurant, you know, how's it going to look? How's it going to sit next door to a burger restaurant? That's quite a complex level of detail, and you have what's called a retail delivery program, where you have to satisfy the landlord or the landlord's design agents that the buildings, that what goes into their building, you know, this huge prestigious new shopping centre in London or Edinburgh or wherever, is the building's going to, the restaurant's going to work. It's going to look great. They want their say Westfield. Westfield will want they want to be sure of what's going to open is going to look fantastic, and so does the client. You know, the client obviously wants it to look fantastic, and the client usually has a strong DNA that we've helped create, and marrying those two up can be challenging.
Yeah, and the approval process, I find it's very complex. You know, landlord and then the owner of the restaurants, as well as any building control or anybody involved needs to approve the process. That could take a lot longer than we originally expected. Yeah.
Yes, and it seems sort of unfair sometimes. You know, you've designed this beautiful restaurant. The client's happy, everybody's happy. Sort of got this scheme going, and then now you have to. Planning, the landlord, building control. You know, there's a whole host of other criteria that need addressing, and it can be challenging. I mean, it's very exciting as well. You know,
of course. Yeah. Okay, Neil. Next questions that I have. I mean, we wrote something on the blog post that we have, and it's creating the concept. Is one of your first points that you mentioned to start, and also on my restaurants launch roadmap that I'm teaching, I always put the concept first. And I feel that the concept is something that a lot of restaurant owners sometimes tend to do after, or they tend to do along the way, rather than creating the concept first. And I think it's quite important to have the concept, and you have chosen to put that as a first part in your write-up. So do you want to tell us a bit more about that? Why do you think it's important?
Yes, well, it's fundamental to the restaurant DNA, the restaurant's structure, the heart of the restaurant. And when I say concept, I don't just mean what it looks like, you know, whether the theme of the walls is sort of blue or red or whatever. It's much more fundamental than that. The concept, of course, includes the food, and that the food works with the interior aesthetic. So if you've got an Italian restaurant, it doesn't, to put it very, very basically, if we're thinking of Italian restaurant, a traditional Italian restaurant, you know, we can all imagine what a what a traditional Italian restaurant might look like. But then, you know, this restaurant that we're talking about, that we're designing, is a new restaurant. And how does it take the essence of Italian restaurant with this Italian food? Is it rustic Italian food, or is it Neapolitan Italian food? If it's rustic, then we can already get a picture. Maybe the walls of the restaurant are an ochre color, or you know, or whatever, or there's some linen involved in the tablecloths, or if it's a Neapolitan, if it's a Milanese restaurant and it's Italian, maybe it's a lot chicer. The walls might be in polished plaster, or something something like that. Of course, those are just things that I'm saying, you know, off the top of my head, but it's as fundamental as that. You when you're in a restaurant, you have to feel like you are like the experience of the food and the service, the ambiance, and of course the design is there. That's why when things, when fault lines shift in a restaurant, it's not great. You've got to have the owner, the operator, and the chef, and the openings team have to be very focused. And I admire tremendously restaurateurs that can do this, because it's a fantastic skill. You have to be very focused about what you want. They do, and the successful ones are always, that I've worked with, are always very, very certain of the look of the restaurant. We've worked, you know, I've mentioned Faux. We've designed, you know, up to 25, 26 Faux restaurants, and the clients, Stephen Jules, are very clear about, you know, the food, the look, the colors, the styles, you know, very specific, and have a very
I agree with you.
Nuances, the tiny nuances. That's exceptional that someone can think of that, and you think of a restaurateur as if the restaurateur, the operator, can capture everything. You know, the food, the design, that's when it's a chain is usually, or a restaurant is usually very successful, because everything has been considered.
Yeah, having a clear vision. I completely
having clear vision. Yeah, makes our job easier and harder, because
not only makes your job easier. I tend to do a lot of budgets for restaurants from the initial stage, and without a clear concept, without a clear vision, it is very difficult for us, you know, to come up with a realistic budget of how much the restaurants may cost. What is the investment, you know, to understand the building cost and everything else. And sometimes I struggle to explain to new young why it's so important to be specific with that clear vision at the concept stage, because it gives you the clarity to move forward in every direction, and especially including the budget. And answering the most asked questions I get all the time is, I want to open a restaurant. How much does it cost?
Yes, exactly.
Well, if you don't know where you want to open, and it's very difficult to tell you how much it will cost one. And I think the concept is the primary thing. The next questions, Neil, will be the planning of the space. I think you're very creative and innovative, and the projects that we worked together, or the project that we initiate together in any way, or that we brainstorm together, I always admired your thinking outside the box, how the layout may be of the restaurant, and not specific in box. So what is your thinking process when you plan the space?
Well, it's my thinking process is planning the space is if I was a customer, and I hope I will be of the restaurant I'm working on. And it's the same as when I go into a restaurant that I haven't been in before. It's that instant, almost imperceptual assessment of the environment and the way you are treated, and the customer journey from going through the front door to sitting down at the table. As the minute you go through the front door, are you being looked after? This comes down to service as well. Are you being looked after? Does someone address you? How do you enter the front door? Is there a greeter station with someone standing behind it, and they'll very charmingly say, you'll introduce, hello, do you have a booking, and then what happens to your coat and your bags? Is it raining outside? Are you going to now walk through to the restaurant with loads of bags, or is there is it a casual restaurant where it's fine to do that, or is it slightly higher end where someone takes your coat and your bags and then you are seen through to the bar or the dining area, and then even before that, when you're at the reception desk, is it tidy? Is it clean? Is there a nice modesty screen, a modesty guard up against the screen, so you're not seeing wires and bits of pens and whatever else the receptionist may have? Or is there a curtain going through to the coat check so you don't see the coat check and all the sort of bits and bobs that are going on there, everyone else's luggage? And is the coat check very dimly illuminated so you don't get a sort of bright light? It's all those things, and I find that especially my radar, my antenna is really high for that thing when I go into a restaurant. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's just a sandwich bar or a chain for lunch, or if it's a special occasion. Especially if you're with family or with your mother or something like that, you want it to be very, very smooth. No matter what type of restaurant it is, as long as it's appropriate to the setting, and as long as you're sort of looked after very well. And when you're sitting at the bar, the bar stools, are they the right height? I've been to restaurants with those U-shaped bars, which look great. And I'm sitting at the bar having a cocktail, waiting for my table, and it's got an island bar, and I'm looking the other side of the bar where I can see all the juices and the fridges are open, and it drives me insane. Why did no one think of that? And then the bar stool might be too high, and I'm like this, or it's too low, and I'm like this. Those things are almost pain for me when I'm in a restaurant, especially when it could just be dealt with so simply. And the bar maker's kit, is it all whizzing and make these sort of juices and things? Is there a mess everywhere? All the squeezy bottles they use, or is it just all slick and beautiful and perfectly lit? Those are things that really, 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 in planning the space, you need to be so aware of them.
The bar. I'm going to tell you a little story. Sorry to interrupt. I deal with a lot of restaurant owners, or a lot of junior restaurant owners that they call me, randomly while they're in the middle of the project. They may have appointed a designer, they may have not appointed a designer, and in most cases they either appoint a very junior designer or no designer at all. And the story of this client, I was just doing one small service for the client, but in the middle of them delivering the bar, she calls me and it goes like, Massimo, how high needs to be the bar? And I'm going like, well, we normally do them at 110, 1,100. So and she goes like, no, this one is 1,200. And I'm like, well, how high is your stool? And the stool was about 76, I think. So in a nutshell, that bar now is going to be too high, just like the example you were giving to me.
Yes.
There was no way she could solve the problem because it was too late. The bar was already...
Yes. So, and another one is when you go into a restaurant and the banquette seat, a chair seat, is normally 480 high. It compacts down to 460 or something when you've sat on it. And then the banquette seat, say you're sitting opposite a banquette, that might be lower, 450 or something like that. So your eye level of your dining companion is like that. And it just really sort of, it's very difficult to relax during a meal, especially for me. I find it incredibly hard to relax when I'm sitting in a restaurant like that, or if you're by the front door and there's no one. People really haven't thought about screening or a curtain, or it's a drafty winter's day, or even we're in England, a drafty summer's day, and you're just if anyone had thought of a little lobby or a glazed screen or a bit of a curtain, you'll be so much more comfortable. There's nothing worse than being in a restaurant and being less comfortable than you would be if you were at home. I think that's so upsetting, because you're spending good money and you sort of come out and you want it to be special. Maybe it's a birthday or something like that, and you're sort of, oh god, the table keeps wobbling. I can see the wires are hanging out from something there, and you know, you go to the loo and it's just like, oh my god, I don't, you know, there's no. I like to be very careful of when the ladies. So if I have washrooms down a corridor, I'd always put the gents at the end of the corridor.
Yes.
So then the ladies wouldn't have to walk past the gents. So the ladies come in first, and people sometimes think that might not be the way, because you know that means the sort of the gents walk past the ladies when they're coming out the loo. But that happens so rarely. I think it's much more important not to have the ladies walk past the door to the gents, and you know that sort of door gets open and
the door open and everything
yeah,
else.
exactly. And there's nothing worse, isn't there? When you get open and no one's sort of the sight line, there's that sliver of a sight line where you can just see right through to the urinals. You know,
Yeah.
oh god.
So what I get from you, Neil, in terms of the plan of the space, you look at every single detail, and more important is from what I get is the customer journey. So based on the concept, then you will plan a customer journey along with the client, and then you will go detail from the curtain at the beginning, go screen, and then the table, what you see when you walk in. So it goes a lot of thoughts into this stage of design. So good.
Yes. Oh, may I just say that it's not just the customer journey; it's the operational journey. You know, the kitchen. How is the kitchen's big enough? The back of house, is there an office if they want an office? Don't sort of dwell on that too much, but that's just as important, if not as important, as the customer journey. You know, when the food leaves the kitchen, it can't have too far to go. You know, it can't arrive cold because the kitchen's on the 4th floor and there's no hoist or whatever. You know, that's just as, you know, the still room, it's got to be the right size, the bar's got to be the right size. Everything has to be.
Yeah. In fact, a few of the projects that you and we had to work was exactly that. What I liked working with you was that you were really understanding of either myself or my team when we were talking about the operational flow, and we wanted to change something or do something slightly different from your original design. You were always very open-minded and accommodating to understanding how important is the flow as well as the design. So your thinking and your thoughts process was very good.
That's great. Yeah. It's great working. I think I know what you're talking about. It was great working with you on those projects and your understanding as well. You have both you and your team, all you and Judy as well, but all have a fantastic understanding of how restaurants work.
Yeah,
we've been doing it a while, haven't we?
I guess. So, and the other thing is applying the concept to the space. So I think we kind of touched the base earlier, but how do you apply the concept to the space in terms of when you go into creating the inspiration board and the sample? How do you do that from a design point?
Well, hopefully we've got our concept. Hopefully, let's call it a traditional French brasserie, because we all know what they look like. Yeah. Hopefully we've got our concept, we've got our French brasserie, and we've got our our theme, whether it's shiny leather banquettes, red leather banquettes, and what else might there be? Marble and anything else that goes into a French brasserie. We've got that concept, and we've got the plan. We've worked out our plan. And then it's really, what I do is I really just play about with sketches, with materials, gathering materials, researching. It's quite simple, really. If anyone's decorated a room at home, it's like that, but just more so, really. Getting colours, plenty of research about what materials are available. Something that you have to keep your eyes open for new materials that are available, and really just for me, I sketch a lot, so just hand sketching, hand sketching the space, and really just exploring it like that, and then applying our materials and our palette to the almost like the walls. It sort of builds itself once you have the space. You can then just see how it will look with the with the chairs, plot those out, do some sketches, You know, work out how the lighting is. Lighting I like to be as sort of residential looking as possible, as soft, but still you need to be able to see the menu. But I don't like any sort of tricks in lighting. I just like, you know, lights with light bulbs, and nothing too fancy, nothing, you know, don't like color changing or anything like that, or anything too complicated. But to make, you know, if say it's a French brasserie, we're trying to make it as homely and as comfortable and as warm looking as possible. And you do that just by laying out materials, sample boards, sketching, and some computer visualization when necessary.
Well, one thing that I find with new clients or young operators which they come into the industry, they tend to make simple mistakes as they improvise themselves, designers. You've mentioned it's a bit like designing your living room to a certain degree, but we've both seen young operators trying to design the restaurants themselves and come up with whether they want a particular wallpaper or they want a particular tables, chairs, and they're putting all together. And what are the typical mistakes that these young operators do if they tend to do themselves, if you don't have the experience of someone like yourself doing the design? Because I've seen this a lot, especially for small operators, which whether it's a dream of theirs to design their own restaurants, whether it's for budget issues, whatever reason it is, we've noticed that there is mistake. When I walk into those restaurants, I can instantly see, did you do this yourself? And either it's lacking something or is overpowering something. So what are the mistakes that you've seen by that an operator can do if you choose their route?
Well, usually the operators that if they've started this restaurant on a shoestring budget, you know, they've borrowed their money from mum and dad, they'll put it all on credit cards. The mistakes tend to be less because their heart tends to be really in it. They might have designed it themselves, they might have even built it themselves. And those tend to be, you know, the more basic it is, the fewer the mistakes. The mistakes tend to be where people these days, if an operator is inexperienced, I wouldn't say young, just inexperienced, whether they're whatever age they are, they may have, you know, if they've got a large budget, if they've got a magpie mind, and it's easy to have that these days because of, you know, social media and Pinterest. You know, you can soon, you know, like grey leather one day and you know, pink leather the next day, and you can it's easy to sort of just sort of pluck at different concepts and ideas, or bits of different concepts and ideas, and then lose sight of your direction, lose sight of the actual core of the restaurant aesthetic. I think that's the easiest thing to do, and that I think is hard anyway, because we're constantly bombarded with different looks. You know, that's sort of very, very forgivable, very understandable. You know, you have to open a design magazine, and interior looks has become, it's almost like fashion. You know, what's spring, the spring look is this, and the summer look is now this, and this is in fashion. And it's very hard if you're new and excited to be designing something or part of the design, not to get caught up in that constant evolution of what's hot and what's not hot. And you know, you might be, let's paint it pink, pink's hot, and oh no, pink's not hot now, let's change. You know, it's very hard. Yeah, it's hard for everybody.
So what would you suggest if they have on credit cards, mums and dads money, they're opening a little cafe, they want to do it themselves? What I'm getting is focus on 3 colors and stick.
Exactly. Yeah.
You would suggest, and keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yes, that's it. That usually looks fine, because that goes back into restaurants that I can saying the sort of planning how well you're looked after, or how the customer journey. I can just think of one or two restaurants where I think we've all been to those kind of a sort of restaurant. So Flatiron Square, if anyone knows London, or Maltby Street, if anyone knows London, they're simple, very basic restaurants that have almost been thrown together, but some of them work fantastically well. A restaurant in a railway arch. Who would have thought of that 100 years ago? And sometimes all the operators done is painted the walls. The walls are brick. They put a bar up. Maybe they've made it out of old scaffolding planks and bits of reclaimed wood, and put a curtain up here, and they call it a restaurant. And my God, it's fantastic! Isn't that brilliant? And then the sad thing is when they get lured into a shopping centre or a large operator, or their idea gets bought out and then it's rolled out, and then restaurant 2, 3, and 4, the brand, their wonderful idea becomes diluted because of economics and necessity, and they've got budgets and all the other complications that ensue. It's a bit like I've just thought of this. It's a bit like being in a pop band, isn't it? You're a pop band. You're the Beatles once. You had a few good songs and you just played them simply, and then everything gets piled on top of it, and then you're a super group, and then you split up. And then, do you know what I mean?
So we're moving to the next questions, and is on your blog you mentioned God is in the detail.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to also tell us what details means for you or your team, and how do you look at the details? Because of course there is the idea, something that you sketch, and then goes into actually make this happen and turn it around into something, whether it's a chair or a banquet or a bar finishing.
Yeah.
How is the process there?
That just is time and attention and experience, and working on CAD and working on if we're talking about the details of the finishing details in a restaurant, it's just what a lot of people don't know or don't understand is that being an interior designer is not necessarily those bits at the end, which are the colors or the fabrics or those things that you immediately see or immediately think of as interior design. They are the what we talked about earlier, the structure of the building, converting it from, say, a bank into a restaurant that I mentioned, and then the detailed design of it, which can be a long process. A chunky drawing package of black and white AutoCAD drawings that someone has to two or three people might have to do for 2 or 3 months. Can be a long, chunky process. And when you've done these drawings, they have to all add up. Everything has to work very well. It doesn't. We all have situations where what you plan doesn't turn out exactly the way, and you have to sort of then deal with that and make sure that the God is in those details, even if even unplanned eventualities are coped with as best they are. And that goes down from what we're saying, the bar height or the bottles, how high. Someone doesn't have to reach too high to get to the bottles. Nothing worse than a back bar shelving that's only this much higher than a bottle, or this much lower than a bottle. That's a disaster. So all those details, or something that doesn't fit the till of the coffee machine properly, or when the coffee machine's made, is there somewhere to put the cups? All those things, and then the fine details within the junctions of the cabinetry, where the leather, how it meets the wood, meets the brass, meets the glass. It really is down to that. And there's no substitute to sorting that than hard work and focus, really.
And actually making it happen.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That was very, very helpful. I think on your blog you writing that you're ending your blog by saying finishing touches, and I guess the finishing touches is the end of the blog, but as well as what I intend for finishing touches. I would assume once everything is in the restaurants, we as people who do the budget, we always put an extra amount of money for things that an interior designer or the owner wish to add. We call it ornaments or other stuff. So it's things that not essentially you have vision, or maybe you have sketched on your plan.
Yes,
how do you do that? The first time you walk into a restaurant that has been almost commissioned and delivered by the contractors and the joinery team, how do you kind of step back and you see from a fresh eye, and then you say, okay, I think we need to add a few cushions here, a plant here, and something there. How do you do that?
Normally it's sort of thought of in advance. You don't really want to be adding too much decoration to a design that's
really
developed. Yeah, because that's that could be a sort of bad sign when what's wrong. We need to add something here, add something there. But those finishing touches, they're usually thought of as a cohesive part of the design. And like the cushion, it's really the cushions. They're the sort of the contrast. That sounds a bit cliche. The icing on the cake. They really are they're integral to the design. But then there is flowers. What's the table decoration? A bar. It's always nice if you're walking into a bar for the cocktail making equipment to look chic and well kept, and the glassware. Isn't it nice when you have maybe some vintage glassware that's for cocktails. I have a real issue, especially if you go into a pub for a meal. You might go into a pub in the country and it serves fantastic food, and everybody's raving about this new pub, and then the glasses, they have those horrible thick glasses, wine glasses that come like from a petrol station or something. I find that a real problem.
Everything needs to come together. But I think the question here was, which I agree with you in the design process, and I know you do that. You will already know whether you need a plant or not, or whether you need anything that is ornament-wise in the restaurants. The struggle that we see is, and the advice we want to give here, it's especially to the owners or new owners of restaurants, new operators, because what I feel is that once the restaurant is there, they tend to want to add something that maybe is not needed. And you answered this. You say that you told us today that has been designed within the process. As long as you have the right equipment, you have thought of everything, and you put everything in place. Once you have the customers and you have the food is complete, you don't have to add anything else.
Exactly.
But I tend to see from especially new operators, once the restaurant is complete and they want everything, they tend to say, I want to put this here, I want to put this there, I need to put this there. And it's not essential, always needed.
No, it's good to hold back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do later. I've had one restaurant owner in the past that because he thought something was needed, he went to buy 3 lamps over £10,000 each. Because he thought he's
lucky him.
He could afford that, and those lamps they've been there for the next 5 years. Yeah. But I don't think they were needed. But of course, it's when the owner really wants something unique in the restaurants, we may need to understand why. Okay, Neil, I think, do you want to add any final word on this? I think we're almost done.
Yeah, I think we're almost done. It's been fantastic talking to you. Really enjoyed the experience, and hope it's helpful to some people. Yes, I think it will be very, very helpful to many of our followers. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Neil. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon. Thank you, Massimo. It's been a pleasure, and talk to you soon. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.